Not anything really exciting as far as the unboxing. You got what looks like the mirror. This particular model, which I'll link in the description, comes with two paintable upper and lower pieces. So these would go here, upper piece, and like this, lower piece. This lower one will come into play later when I do my little courtesy light drilled out and installed in the bottom. Other than that, we got a wiring little harness for the signals and this cool little backup light feature that this one has. And other than that, just a little wiring diagram of what they mean, which is pretty self-explanatory. So this is a 99 to 2002, I believe, Silverado towing mirror. The shape of the mount area actually fits the Astro quite well, minus this front piece here, which you have to cut out the plastic window trim piece of the Astro Safari. I may just refer to it as a Astro, as that's what I'm driving. One of the things that I thought of doing is actually cutting these arms down by about 2 inches. You could get a little bit on either arm, cutting the plastic off, but keeping it looking tidy is the challenge there. And then there's two steel tubes welded to a cross section, kind of a U shape here, that have retainers at the end so that you don't pull the whole thing off. If you were to shorten those, which you'd have to if you shorten these, you'd have to figure out a way to put some kind of, instead of a retainer clip, I don't know, I was thinking about drilling and driving a screw through it so that it would stop from falling out. But I went against trying to shorten this one, because just trying to get to these screws from the other side, there's 4 of them, is really challenging. And trying to take the actual glass out, I almost broke my driver's side one, which is already installed. So what I found is that this little retainer here, I think the only purpose of that is to retain this little piece, this gasket foam piece. I didn't end up using it on the driver's side because it just got in the way. So I would have had to drill more holes in the door frame, and I didn't feel like doing that. So this comes off and is saved for later. We'll set that aside. Here are the connectors. This one controls the 2 black wires are for the heated mirror, and then the red, green, yellow just for the actual power mirror adjustments. What I discovered is on the Astro, the best way I could wire it was to get the up and down adjustment working, but what that did was left the left and right adjustment backwards. So you'd hit left, it would go right. But whatever, I don't adjust my mirrors that much for it to worry me. And if there's a solution that you guys know about, just drop a comment below, let me know. I tried all the different wiring combinations, and yeah, that's the best I could do. The other connector is for the backup light or clearance light or whatever it's called, and then the turn signals. There's a ground, blue and white. That's what this is for. This connector won't fit the stock Astro connector, which only has 4 pins. Actually only uses 3, but it's a 4-pin connector. So what I'm going to do is use the stock connector, just pull the pins out and repin it, and then reuse the old connector so that it's actually got a nice little clip in like this, and then just run something separate for the heater, the 2 heater wires. One of the things I'm thinking about doing is using speaker wire, and it seems to be as big or bigger than this, so as far as gauge goes. So let me know if that's a bad idea. I think it should work, but anyway. Wiring video will be a second video, because that is just gonna Take some time. So yeah, the front section has more of a lock-in shape, and the little clip is toward the back. So push in, should pop out. And then you'll should have 4 bolts here that hold on this bracket. So just take those off. I think those should fit through there, but I have to take this plastic cover off anyway, and for that I need to take these 3 mounting bolts out, and then the plastic mounts on with what looks like 4 screws into the plastic through the brackets. So these will have to come off anyway, because we need to cut about half of the meat off of this bracket in the front here, and then kind of clearance it here, so it helps to get these out of the way. Screw for the topmost piece is a little shorter, so keep that in mind. At least it was for me. That needs to go back to the same spot. The longer ones will just either crack through the plastic or not fit right, not tighten down. So that gives us our bracket. This bracket has grease and a spring inside there, so don't lose that spring. So the courtesy lights, basically just a LED and then a tube that has a filter in there for the light path that in this case I put my logo on, and it tightens in kind of like a backup camera would, or a what do you call it, like a backup sensor. Comes with a drill that perfectly matches the diameter, so that you can just slip it through and then bolt it on from the rear. So I'm going to do that. I already eyeballed the location from the previous one, so in my case I wanted the light as far out from the vehicle as possible. That way the light pattern as it hits the ground hopefully clears the tire and everything else. So as far away from the vehicle as I could get it into this slot between the mirror mount and this bolt that holds the whole thing together. Okay, so that should give enough space for this to fit up inside. Now I need to drill a matching hole in this piece. The only thing that needs to be done on this guy, I marked it on the driver's side too, but obviously making sure the logo is facing the right direction. So what I did was just put this up to a light and see which logos, which way the logo is facing, and then just put a mark. Just put a mark on the housing that's well for the first one I did it to the driver's side, I did it towards the back of the vehicle, so I'll do the same here. Okay, so fishing a coat hanger up through here isn't working too well. Last time I had all this taken apart, so it looks like at least taking off this top portion is going to help me out here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's a couple tabs that hold the inside or the inner plastic piece inside and onto this. That hole clamps the whole thing on there, so it's just a few tabs all the way around to get that loose. And then a little bit of flexing to encourage it to get out here. Okay. Actually, getting this inner piece out requires you to flex it quite a bit, but I don't think it's going to get in the way. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it there where it is. Make it easier to put it back together as well. Alright, so with a little huffing and puffing, got that back together. Make sure it still slides freely. Good enough. So we're going to have to paint this piece as well as the other piece. Just going to rattle can it with some white that I had lying around. I will deburr this, sand it all out a little bit so it's cleaner. Put a few coats of paint down and put it all back together. Okay, next day here, put a couple coats of paint on this one. The bottom one didn't come out that great, but it's on the bottom, so meh. Good enough. Top one actually came out a little bit better. Still a little couple areas where I might have hit it with maybe another coat. But anyway, eventually I want to sand it all up, clean it up, and do a body color paint on it when I do some paint touch-up on the van. I'll have that done professionally. But for now, I want to put this thing together. So I'm going to confirm that the logo is still lined up properly, because it did move a little bit, I noticed. So making sure I insert it properly towards what would be the back of the vehicle. There. And tighten it down. Last time I got lucky with the direction that this bolt ended up. Let's see what happens here. Well, not the best. Can't really get a screwdriver on it like that. Maybe like this. cool. Yeah, that should lock it in place. Okay. Now, one of the things I hope I don't run into here on the passenger side is a couple of the tabs that hold these pieces in place were a little too long. So what ended up happening is that the clips didn't fall in place where they needed to. So let's see how we do. It wasn't this one, it was the top section I had problems with on the last one. And of course, with this courtesy light in there now, it's a little bit more awkward trying to get together. But we'll make it work. Hopefully. Yeah. Yeah, looks good-ish. At least it's correct as far as installation. As far as paint goes, there's still some work that can be done there. Top part should be a lot more straightforward if we don't run into that click issue. No problem on the inside. Ha! No problems on the outside. That's what it should look like. Hopefully I got that aligned properly, and when we test it out in the wiring video, I don't have to take it all apart again. But yeah, it's really not that bad. It's just, you know, getting a flat something around the edges here, popping this off, rethreading the courtesy light on. So the next portion will be cutting up this bracket. I'll kind of show you on camera what the plan is. This is the forward piece, front of the van, this way. Between this point and this point, what I did was round off and just trim basically half of the width all the way around in this shape, in this kind of triangular shape around here. Or you can go straight across. I think I ended up rounding it on this end, but just straight across between those 2 points. I missed this thread, even though it's, I think it's that one, what do you call it, retainer piece that we're not going to reuse. So if you cut into it, it's no big deal. The one thing you will be cutting into is one of the actual mount bolts, and we'll be taking the threaded area of it and cutting it in half, basically. It'll still thread in, at least it did on the driver's side. So it's still usable and it's still mounted up just fine. Another thing that gets cut off is this plastic, well, the area where it bolts up to the plastic trim piece. And it didn't seem to cause an issue. At first it was loose on the driver's side, but when I bolted everything up and tightened it up against the frame, I think the plastic portion stuck out enough where the body of the door frame pushed on it and tightened it, and it seems to sit fine. It doesn't move. It doesn't. I can't really pull out on it very well. So originally I was thinking about just cutting a piece in there and making it tight, and then just kind of drilling through and figuring out a way to tighten it down. But it didn't seem to need it. So it still has the other 3 mounting positions and seems to work just fine. And other than that, we're going to be shaving off this trailing edge, again about half, starting from where these notches are. Just that gives a little clearance to where the divot in the back of the door is. It'll slide in a lot nicer. So I'm gonna do that real quick. So while the aluminum bracket there cools off, I'm gonna take apart the door, take the mirror off, and start prepping the location for the new bolts. I took some templates off the driver's side, and hopefully those will work on this side, and I'll try to upload those. Another thing that I need to do a video about is this back here. Finally got this trifold 6-inch memory foam mattress in on top of a little sofa bed folding mechanism, and I'll need to put that together in a video and kind of do a walkthrough on how I built it, because it's kind of interesting the way it folds up. But yeah, I still have some daylight, so let me get into this mirror. So I created a template based off the driver's side that I did with what are the old factory holes and then the new Silverado mounts. The factory holes are a little larger than I'm going to drill. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch on the Silverado. It keeps it nice and tight, and hopefully it'll be enough. So for this template, either you can, I'll upload it to the forum, but you can either print this out and flip it or just use it backwards like I'm going to, since my copier doesn't seem to have a rotate feature. Obviously you want to maybe make some extra marks, mock it up as best you can. The template was semi-close. I'm not going to really lean on it too heavily, and I wouldn't recommend it either. Obviously it's a good idea to mock things up on your own and make sure that everything lines up before punching holes in your car. But the template was pretty close. So the upper hole lined up. It's the lower hole here that didn't. So now I'm just gonna put some indentations. where I'll be drilling. So based off those marks that I put on there, I'm going to put the bolts back in and then mock it up one last time to make sure. Since we cut so much material off of this guy, when we thread it in, it's going to be kind of tough to start probably, and then it's going to drop and sink farther in than the other bolts, which is fine because this is the bolt that is here closest to this door frame, and if it's a little shorter it actually doesn't hurt anything. There'll still be plenty of thread left to bolt it up. But yeah. Not bad. Looks like I actually overdid it a little bit on the clearancing. But there is that gasket piece that on the other side it filled the gap just about the same. I did a template for this too. I think the piece that I may have miscut on this portion, at least on the passenger side, is down here. I think I left a little bit more on it and put more of a matching angle. But then again, that piece there is replaceable, so not too bad. Okay, so now that we got it pretty much figured out, I'm gonna put it back together. Okay. Spider, spider! The only trick with this is making sure that it's lined up. Everything else lines up. And there's going to be quite a bit of tension against it because of the spring, so you're actually going to pull it in with the bracket. Okay, so if you run into this problem, see how there's a bigger separation on the top than there is on the bottom. That's because that little plastic clip in there slipped while I was screwing it on, so I'm going to fix that real quick. Okay, now that got it all back together mostly properly here, gasket in place, let's get it mounted. Okay, so these are the bundles of wires coming out from the mirror. The black again are the heater. This is for the courtesy light, and then the mirror controls and heater and lights and all that stuff. So what I did was run the harness that they provided in, an extension for the heater lines, so that I can get them down hopefully to the rear defrost, and then this is an extension that's going to run to the dome lights for the courtesy lights that I put in. And then these are the signals and all that other stuff. So didn't have to pull the door panel off, just ran them down and fished them through. Popped these out open so I could get them through there. Then I took this panel off so I could get up behind it, and for now I just have them all tucked away up here until I can actually do the wiring video, which should be a lot of fun. And thanks to the guys on the forum that recommended this Bluetooth device. I actually haven't had one work quite as well as this one. The on-off feature is key. So this is what the final product will look like. You'll see how the Silverado shaped mirror goes fairly well along the lines of the Astro. So not too bad. A little bit of a gap here that the gasket will fill. And of course, if you overdo it, you'll get a gap like this. It's interesting because on the other side the gasket kind of fell in here and kind of filled up that gap, but hopefully it doesn't whistle on me. Anyway, once I get the wiring figured out, I'll be able to show all the lights and blinkies and the down casting courtesy light. That will, on the passenger side, be dropping my wife's blog's logo, and on my side, my NoS Irby logo. Anyway, what I can show you is the fold function, which is manual, obviously, but yeah, that's there. Here's that clearance light that's going to be wired into the backup lights, and then the signals, of course, and there's my face. Cool. Got it all, I think. Thanks for watching. Catch me on part 2.